awards that are external, and we assist the principal investigators navigate terms and conditions throughout the life of the project. We work with them on changing any terms and conditions, clarifying any terms and conditions, any budget issues like transfers or changes in the budget throughout the life of the project. And I'm an authorized signer, so I can speak on behalf of the institution with sponsors. So we can get things done pretty quick if projects take a different direction, which they often do, from developing an idea into making it a reality. So we're happy to help folks with that. We have about 600 active projects right now at the university, and my team are professional research administrators. So we know what we're doing, and we represent with the sponsors very well. And we are committed to the success of the principal investigators and the reputation of UTSA. So I'm looking forward to giving you a little bit more background on that.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Do you want to go? Do you want to give your presentation or?
I sure can. So I know you've started through the process of grant development, locating an opportunity, solicitation, going through that, and getting ready to work with that. So once you've identified an opportunity and it's been packaged through the Research Service Center, and I believe that was that office was represented last week in your discussion, they will negotiate and accept that award on behalf of the institution. And once that's done, they do a handoff. We have an electronic pipeline workflow system, if you will, of awards that are ready to be set up. And that is, at that point, post-award administration takes over that award. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Bear with me. I'm used to Teams.
So just a real quick to everyone. So last week we started off our conversation on the pre-award side. Jennifer, like she said, is going to go to the post-award after, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give some more insights into RFPs, some samples, and then have a couple of remaining points I want to bring up.
Okay, so I believe you can see the screen with the office name.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, and we have, I'm not going to use a presentation mode because then it'll go off the rails if I do that. So here's some contact information. I'm the director. Justin Marmolejo is the assistant director. And I've also made this a live link into our webpage that tells you what we do, what services we have, but also it has our staff directory on it. So the staff are divided by portfolios that are department and college based. So say chemistry has one post-award administrator contact, and she takes care of the whole portfolio of all sponsors that all of the faculty have in that area. So whatever department that you're in, if you happen to have a grant to run, you'll have that directory to show you who would be your contact if we don't reach out to you first. So in this slide, you may have seen it last week, but it's kind of busy, so I'll walk you through it. We have our pre-award section where the opportunities are discovered. You've already gone through this, how to develop. They'll help you develop the proposal, package it, negotiate it, and accept it. And then there are partners like Carlos's area and Dan Ricker's area, strategic research development, where the ideas and the opportunity direction is decided. Very briefly stating that. And then the RSC and contracts and industrial agreements if they're negotiating and packaging an award. These are the partners on pre-award. And then, but my presentation today is in the section in post-award. So once an award has been handed off, we go through a process called setting it up. Now, we have an integrated workflow into PeopleSoft. So all of the details about the award will flow into that, but we'll verify that information. We'll set up the project. We'll identify the funding name for the system. Then we go into administrating that project. Before we go into administration though, we're gonna contact the awardee and we're gonna set up what we call a kickoff meeting. And at the table, we're gonna bring everyone that's gonna have a responsibility with that award. You know, all awards are different. So whatever's special procedures or somebody in the university that needs to have some work throughout the life of it, we'll make sure they're at the table. So your post-award administrator will coordinate the meeting. The grant accountant that will be doing the billing and reporting will be there. We'll request the BSC reconciler to be there. And then the PI will pull together their performance team to be at that meeting. What we do is go through the agreement. We go through the terms and conditions. We highlight things that we need to know. We will talk about the budget. We'll go through it line by line. We'll look at it from a timeline perspective. You know, you may have summer salary, but it's not until next year. So we'll discuss that and we'll identify the person that's going to be posting that payroll and say, Dr. So-and-so has payroll for next year. You know, at what point do you need to be advised of that? And then there's an internal discussion that happens. We really want to launch those projects very successfully. We want to invest all the time that we need up front to make sure that it's a smooth launch, because from a performance perspective, you want to stay on schedule best you can on what you propose. So we don't want any questions about how to spend the money, how to get tied into that funding source to be a barrier to any timelines. So we really pride ourselves in the time that we take, the coordination, the amount of information that we cover in that meeting, but then everything is a takeaway so that you can form your own library, if you will, of records that you'll need to operate that project. So we are partners with you throughout the project for the life of it. So it could be up to 5 years, and you will have frequent emails, meetings with you if you want. We'll do check-ins and touch base. We have monitoring tools on our end to kind of watch the spending. We call it a burn rate. So we're going to kind of watch, 50% through the project is 50% of the budget spent. So we will reach out on that. Plus, there's a dashboard that the university has that'll send you automatic notifications and information to help you navigate like milestones, deliverables and due dates and things like that. So then over our partners, which are represented here, we're post-award. We work very closely with the business service centers because that would be your contact for the actual spending, or if you will, creation of accounting needs. So they're creators. My team are reviewers and approvers. And then the ancillary department in the university, whether it be purchasing or disbursements, scholarship, payroll, all of those will be the final approvers on that expense. So the university has very strong internal controls on the spending. And that's just briefly that structure of creator, reviewer, and approver. We also have a partner very close to us, Grants and Contracts Financial Services. They are a sister department to us. They manage the invoicing receivable aspect because all grants have many different types of receivable terms. Some of them will give us all the money up front. We set up the budget and you spend. And then we just maybe at the end provide a report. And if they want the remaining funds returned, we just send them a check back. Others want only to pay us with an invoice of actual costs. That's the most common one. So the university will set up the full budget and front that for you. And then as you spend monthly or quarterly, the invoice will go out with a detail of those costs. the sponsor could question, come back to us and question, who is so-and-so being paid on the project? What is their role? And we're here to help advocate for you and make sure that the sponsors are comfortable with that spending, and definitely we'll be able to help you. So that's why you want to follow your prescribed budget. You want to identify any change needs early. Let us help you with that. We have what's called expanded authority at UTSA. So there are some things that the university can grant permission to do with a notification to the sponsor for changes. Other changes require prior approval, meaning we package the request, we send it to the sponsor, and they say yes or no. And based on that answer, we align your budget and terms, and then we keep going with the project. So that, in a nutshell, is the accounting and financial services is the main university accounting. But grants and sponsored projects, if you will, research projects, anything external with terms and conditions would be under a separate module in the accounting system under post-award administration and grants and contracts financial services. This slide talks about our service. So post-award administration is the front end face, if you will, of post-award. Grants and contract financial services is the back office. So they're, very technical with the financial and reporting accuracy, and very system-based. My team and I are service-based. So what do you need to be successful with your project, to keep it going, to overcome challenges? So we are 100% focused on post-award services. I explained how our portfolios are designed. That is at the convenience of the investigators, so that they don't have to think about, well, I need this done. Who do I contact? I need that done. So we try to eliminate the number of contacts and make that as efficient as possible. We can't, there's still a long list of partners in the university, but we try to do our part to not create more confusion. So we're a centralized office. We focus on service. Spending on your project is one of our main concerns, because if you're not spending and we're not invoicing or reporting to the sponsors, they will see no work being done. So spending is important. Even if you are working and not charging, it doesn't matter. Sponsors will connect performance with the financials. So we want to give you your spending authority as fast as possible in that accounting setup. We're going to have that kickoff meeting to get you going, answer any questions that you have, connect you with the folks that will help you launch, whether it be payroll, purchasing, your business service center representative. And also under this, what I mentioned, internal controls, the university, all the spending under sponsored projects gets routed through my office for review. At this time right now, we're doing 100% plus review on expenditures. That means if you buy a widget, that voucher for that purchase flows through our office for our review and approval in the workflow before it gets posted as an expense to your project. The same with payroll. All of that flows through electronically and in our PeopleSoft system, and auditors are very happy with that system. So we are reviewing your expenses, not to tell you can't do something, but if we see something questionable, we are your advocate to find out, what is it you're trying to do? What activity are you working on the project? I can see how you need this, but let's try purchasing it this way or that way, or obtaining it in a different way. Or let's contact the sponsor and let them know that you're dead in the water until this purchase is an approved budget line item. We'll help you with that. So that leads into compliance. The guidelines, to me, I always say, you know, it's like reading the tax code. It's a little overwhelming and subject to interpretation. So that's where university internal controls come into place. The internal controls are the interpretation of those guidelines. And then beyond that, special terms and conditions for the agreement are managed by my office and my leadership in maybe deciding whether or not something is more restrictive or not against university policy. The milestones, we call that, so those are the deliverables that are set on a schedule. The university accounting system, PeopleSoft, the project account we have the ability to go in and schedule reports, invoicing. We can put like tags in there for special check-ins, and we can stay on track so that you're not missing a vital deadline that the sponsor is going to get in their, you know, red flagged or on their bad list and come back to us and say, you know, you're late. We have to remind you of your terms and conditions. We need you to get back on track. We're going to put all your reimbursements on hold until this is done. So we try to stay ahead of that and keep those interactions with the sponsor more positive, and it builds trust if you're meeting the deliverables. And that means later on when you finish and you submit another application, you have that success and good reputation in your back pocket for future funding. So we're partners in that. And I had already explained the burn rate and the spending plans. Just keep in mind, whatever you budget, the beginning is the plan that we're going to follow. So budget against your scope of work. Don't be afraid to really declare what your needs are, because later, when it's holding up your research, and we have a lot of hoops to jump through. But if you can be very clear, concise, and don't hold back on the things that you're going to need in that proposed budget. And always request help, second opinions, mentors, whatever you can. Have someone put another set of eyes on your budget against your scope of work to see if you're covering all the resources that you're going to need to accomplish your project. And then sponsor relationship. We consider that super important for you. We want to stay on track with the reputation of not only UTSA, but the reputation of the researcher, the awardee. Future funding is involved. Folks' careers, you know, can be made by successful projects. So we're very aware of that. And one practical thing that we do is we don't make it a practice to speak to sponsors about your project without you knowing about it. Now, there's certain deliverables that are already set up, you know, where we're responding to, but speaking on your behalf, speaking on behalf of your project, we prided ourselves in the fact that we respect that it's your science, your research, your project, and we want to make sure that the requests, the communication that we have with the sponsor, that you're aware of it and that we have your feedback on any improvements that we can make in it. So we'll run emails past you. We'll have conversations. I'll call up a PI and say, hey, you know, I need to let NIH know about this. This is what I plan to do. You're going to be copied. I don't want you to be surprised by that. This is why we're doing it. This is the benefit for it. And lastly, I'm in this deck of slides that you'll be able to take away. There are some resources with live links in it. And I tagged the UTSA resources because whatever institution that you're at, they're going to have some version of a HOP or Handbook of Operations. or handbook of policies. They're going to have a financial guidelines from their accounting system on how to spend. And they're also going to have a sponsored projects office. Ours is called Red Key Research, Economic Development, Knowledge Enterprise. The vice president of research is over that. So there'll be a similar structure for whatever institutions that you're at. And these would be kind of modeling the resources that you would use for spending, for allowability, for requesting for approval to change something in your project, or basic understanding of policies to be explained to you. UTSA treats all sponsored funding as if it is federal money because that's the most restrictive. And this is the federal code or law set for that. So in uniform guidance, it provides the structure or the framework, if you will, of internal controls. It's not going to say, you know, purchasing alcohol on a project is never allowed, but it's going to say generally alcohol purchases on a project at an institution of higher education is not allowed. But you may be studying in your research project the effects of alcohol on something. So, you know, obviously you're going to have to purchase that. So this is the framework. It gives you kind of an idea of the culture of the federal expectations for spending. But once again, those rules are already laid out in your solicitation, your request for proposal. All of that guidance and reference will be there at the beginning, but later on, if you have any questions, you can reference that. And then this research terms and conditions we use a lot because it's a high level, what you can and cannot do without prior approval from certain high federal agencies like NSF, NIH, DOD, USDA. There's a nice matrix and it says, you know, I'm going to be going on leave for 2 months. Do I need to notify the sponsor? And then you can go across and see which agencies would expect that. So say you're with NSF and you can look at NSF's guideline and they'll say, I'll tell you right now, it says after a 3-month leave requires prior approval or notification to NSF. So if you're going to be gone for 2 months, probably okay. But I would recommend that you notify your post-award administrator and just give them a heads up. So those are just some tools, references, resources that you can use as you get ready to delve into applying for and getting awarded sponsored projects.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think Jennifer really hits on a key point during the pre-award side of really working with the RSC on your budgets and comparing that against the funding opportunity announcement to make sure you reach a balance between what you're saying you're going to do. You don't want to be too overly ambitious in both your budget and your narrative, because then they'll say there's no way that they can complete all of that within the amount of money that we've given you. So there's a balance there. And I think so what Jennifer's talking about is when you're preparing your budgets, make sure, you know, that you reach that balance, but that you also have enough to get the job done so that on the back end, you're not having to go back to the program officer and say, hey, we'd like to move this category of funding over into this other one to cover this that we didn't anticipate. Because as a general thumb, you don't like to talk necessarily to the program, the agencies. You always want to have good news to share with them, in other words, as opposed to going back with them. So thank you for those points. And I'm going to now go back into, I'm going to revisit some discussions that we were kind of starting last week in terms of, so at first I'm going to go through some grant writing tips for you. And then I want to get back into some RFPs and some samples to kind of just walk you through kind of the process that I take, and Jennifer, please add in if there's any points you want to make as I go through this. And so, having read many RFPs and helped either write or write myself or edit and participate as a grant professional, some of the key grant writing tips I'd like to share with you is one, really follow the FOA, the funding opportunity announcement, organize your proposal as instructed so that, and I think I mentioned this last week, if it says to you, provide project summary and answer A, B, and C, like they say, what's your organizational structure? How many years experience do you have in this one area? Follow that exactly. So you don't want to make the mistake, like I think I referenced last time, where you're writing more in an academic structure and you're not hitting on key points. And just and then use the checklist. Oftentimes, and I'm going to show you an example, an RFP will give you hints or give you actual checklists. And so let's see if you can see. Let me go through the checklist. Where was that? On this one, for example, whoops. Can y'all see this where it says rating factor?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. So this right here is going to give you like a checklist of not only the importance that they kind of in terms of points prescribed to each section, but it's going to give you kind of a breakdown of what are they looking for, and further up here there's a listing of let me see if it's got it right here. Yeah, these are the kind of, a lot of times they'll be at the very back end and it actually look more like a checklist, but this one right here gives you kind of, these are the forms that are going to be required, and here's the format of your narrative. So keep that in mind, and then just I'm a stickler, so I usually write very formally, very scientifically technical oriented, but yes, indeed, the first person is being used more often. I guess just reach that balance and ask your colleagues what is the general accepted practice, and really, don't get lost in too many acronyms and too many shorthands. Sometimes it's better to describe in detail. Some reviewers may not be experts in your area, because grants, like NSF will, obtain various types of reviewers at different levels. So it really just depends. And then use an active voice and don't exaggerate, but emphasize, really active language, not passive like will be. You want it to really show that, the strength of your belief in the sentence and what you're trying to accomplish. And so another important thing is to use, data and evidence to back up your claims, perhaps pilot data. And so I'm going to just skip back over here real quick. I've got this pulled up for you. So this is an example, and I'll go through this in a minute, where, they've set up the problem up here. And then here they are giving the reviewer, the reader, a lot of information on their prior work, and that really helps to kind of situate how important the research is, that it shows promise. So I would do that. Bring other people into your proposal. Once you've been working, and this happens to me a lot, once you've been working on a proposal and you've read it 15,000 times, and you begin to have those blind spots in the proposal, and so get other people to review it for you, because with fresh eyes, they can see some of the editing issues and may have a different perspective. And one tip that I've learned over the years is, for you personally, it's like read from the back to the front, each section like that. So it changes up the kind of the flow for you that you're probably used to reading it. And you might catch additional edits or additional things you want to make changes on. And then ask your mentor or others in your college for standard documents like facilities and resources documents. Others that might describe the labs that are available. So those, I would take those into account. And then in terms of reviewers, I would always try and remember that these reviewers oftentimes will have 10 to 20, maybe 30 proposals to review. And so they've been working all day. They've come home, they've cooked dinner or whatever, and they sit down finally at 10:30 at night, and they've got 30. So you don't want to give them any excuses to kind of look at yours and put it in the maybe or do not fund pile. So really that's where writing succinctly comes into play, following the instructions. If you're referencing something in a different part of your narrative, you're lower in the narrative, say see section 2 regarding this, put that in parentheses, make their life easy. And I also wanted to anticipate, say to you, to anticipate where the weaknesses are in your, if you have any in your research, or where do you need to highlight for strength. And then what also, don't forget the importance of supplemental documents. So, you may have the narrative, here's the project summary, here's the narrative, or it's known oftentimes as the project description. And then, you get through all of that, and then there's all these supplemental documents like bio sketches, CVs, for example, conflict of interest. I'm going to show you some of those in a minute. And so don't forget the importance of those, because they really kind of highlight the strength of not only your research background, but the nature of the research question. If you have the facilities, this is a document, a facilities document to actually accomplish the background. So with that, what I want to do now is I want to just kind of show you some of the, can everybody see this web page right here? So what I've done is I've pulled open, and this is now, so you've done the discovery phase that, like Jennifer was talking about, you've looked through grants.gov, and let's say you put graduate fellowships in there, and then you popped up, this came up in that grants.gov search, and it's the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. And so if y'all can't see the RFP, please somebody just let me know, otherwise I'll continue. But so, what I generally will do is, as I'm scanning like a list in grants.gov, let's say I found this research, Graduate Research Fellowship Program. First thing I always really basically do is I'll skim the program synopsis just to make sure that, is this indeed something anywhere related to what I want to do? And then I'll usually go down to the eligibility section first, because there's no point in me, pursuing this if, I'm going to use this one. I've got it in a PDF format. So, see where the application deadline is. Do I actually have time to complete this? Read the synopsis and is there sufficient funds? What are my chances? And this one's really good. You're going to fund over 2,700 proposals, and it's going to provide $37,000 stipend and a $12,000 cost of education allowance. So this could really set you up for the time that you're there. And then so I kind of skim these areas. And then you can get into kind of like, let me just see what this one was. Okay, so usually they'll have a table of contents for you. You can read further about the program description, the award information, there's a summary at the top, and then this is for this program, at least, there's a lot of kind of requirements for you. So I would make sure that you meet all these requirements. And then in addition to that, it's got these degree requirements, and then this one, apparently it only serves like these fields. So make sure that if you're applying, for example, if you were to apply to this one, it would need to fall under these areas. And then, once I've looked through all that, I start to get into, okay, so what's actually involved in this grant? What do I need to submit to be successful? And so I've just kind of highlighted some of these, and I can send these along as examples for you. For the GRFP, it requires at least 3 references, and then you're skimming through here, and you're gonna have to turn in a personal and relevant background, future goal statement at 3 pages. And then your research plan that can be 2 pages, and don't go over those 2-page limit, because that give them grounds to reject your submission. And the key part of this for at least this grant is that it requires an intellectual merit and broader impact section for each to be put in each of those statements. And then they give you some more information on your reference letters, and it actually outlines here. So if you were sending to your contacts, you could send along with, this is what's going to be needed on this. Are you willing to write a reference letter for me in that capacity? So I want to show you that one, and then let me show you a different one now. Let me just pull open. Here's something that's a little bit more kind of that GRFP is really tailored to kind of it's a little bit different in what they asked. This is the STEM grant, and this one's a little bit different in that it has what I would consider the typical standard documents that you would find requested. And so once again, I've gone through this, I've looked through here, I've said, okay, here are the eligible disciplines, here's my chances to win. Here there's going to be 50 to 90 awards, so that's a pretty good possible fund rate. Tells you who may submit, so it's only available to institutions of higher education 2 and 4. So I know we're eligible. This is an important one, and I'm going to go over this in a minute, but oftentimes there's a limit on the number of proposals, or not often, but sometimes there's a limit on the number of proposals. It's called limit submission, and I'll get into that in a second. And then, budget, sometimes they will require you to have like a 1-to-1 cost share. For every $1 you ask the federal government for example, you have to come up with $1, or they don't allow cost share, so that you'll run the gamut on that. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you there. And then, here's typical, what you would typically find required: project data form, project summary. And I'm going to show you a sample here in a second. Project description, which for NSF, I think is 14 or 15 pages. And then, and then they give you basically an outline of exactly, these are the bullets that you're going to need to really make sure that you address in the narrative. And then, objectives, rationale, who are your potential scholars that are going to be in this project. And then this grant asks for a chart that has, so yeah, in this instance, we had to work with institutional research to obtain some data on students. So you might have, I'm not sure that you would, but you might have something like that required. At least with NSF and others as well, that there's going to be in the narrative results from prior support that usually has to go into the narrative. So you got to plan for that when the space that you have of 15 pages and usually it can be up to, I think it's 5 pages. So, but I would encourage using 5 pages, and so there's ways to kind of cut that, not cut it down, but condense it down, I guess is the best way to say it. And in this grant, they're going to require a project management plan and evaluation. So, think about those kind of aspects. And then you're going to have an intellectual merit and broader impact statement required in there. So with that, I want to show you a sample. Oh, before I do that, I've left you a link in there for if you wanted to actually apply for the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I've left you this link, and this is kind of what I wanted to show you for the GRFP. This right here is her personal statement. And so, here's the motivation. She talks about it, it gives the background information, relevant background. And then you'll notice down here at the bottom, so this person has responded to what the RFP actually requires. So it's an intellectual merit. She's kind of talking about the intellectual merit of herself and what she's going for, the broader impacts, and then her future goals. And then her other one, I guess his other one, there's his research plan right here. And once again, this should be only 2 pages. Yes, it's only 2, as it was required in the RFP. And, you know, you'll see this is the research plan that they set for the grant duration objectives. And then there's once again that intellectual merit and broader impact statement right there. So I'm going to go through this real quick. And so this is a sample, and that there's a link to this as well in the slides that I'll send forward. So there's usually a cover sheet. A lot of this can be filled out by downloading it into our Cayuse, and we have some of this information already here. Then it's got a bunch of certificates that are required. There's a cover sheet. It'll have the amounts, the due date, all of that. And then you start getting into, here's a data form, project data form, once again, summarizing some. And then here's the project summary. In NSF, it requires an overview, intellectual merit, and broader impacts. And then as you get further down, this person starts it off with the intellectual merit discussion. And then you'll see they give that background of what are the current challenges. And here's where they put in their results from prior support. Every agency is going to have their own kind of guide, so they have the RFP, and then there's a proposal preparation guide. Now, this is an older grant, so it's not it doesn't look like it's in the current format that they require, but in the PAPPG, it'll give you step-by-step instructions if you did have any prior research of exactly what needs to be recorded in this prior results section. You notice theirs is only, it looks like a half a page maybe. And once again, this is where I was talking about the pilot project. So they're laying their case, their background case of what have they done in the past that really shows promise. So they've got all of that, and then they get into the research questions, what they're going to be trying to do, and the work plan, like laying exactly out the methodology, the methods, what's going to happen. There's another work plan, and these are all pretty standard. What you're going to find in proposals is a personnel or administrative section where you give information on the personnel that are the PI, the co-PI, any others that are playing a key role. And then there's that broader impacts that needs to be looked at. And then remember I was mentioning, after that, you start getting into kind of supplemental documents like a reference page. And then you're going to see these have changed now, but they'll be in the proposal administrative guide. It'll show you exactly, this is actually, they have a form now that you actually use, an updated form. But I just wanted to show you that to give you an idea of what a biographical sketch is going to look like. And then here, this one actually calls it a biographical sketch. Then you get into the budget here, and I would encourage y'all to look at these to kind of give you some pointers on, how did people fund some of this stuff? What did they break down? Looking at samples is can really help you. Now, here's a facilities and equipment document. If you have partners or other key personnel participating from other institutions, for example, you're going to need to collect their facilities documents and then compile them all together. And they usually don't have a page limit for facilities and other equipment and other resources. And sometimes there's there usually is a data management plan required. And then here you start getting into letters of collaboration or letters of support. Make sure you look at the PAPPG if they have what they'll oftentimes say the exact format that you can use. NSF in particular has like a one-page and then a one-paragraph format that you can use to do that. So, so there's that. And then I just want to kind of bring up just a couple of other things to you. Like I mentioned a little while ago, if it is a limited submission, you're going to have to, most institutions have a limited submission office. And that's basically where let's say you have 4 groups that want to go for a project grant that only accepts 2 proposals from your institution. So a competition is run. I don't know if you guys are going to really run into this unless you find something maybe your professor would work with you on. But there is the page here, and I'd encourage you to go check that out. And here's an example of, this is an excerpt from an RFP where it says, 3 proposals are only accepted. A lot of your work, increasingly due to complexity requires working on teams. And so here's a link to some kind of background information on it, networks for science and the team of science, and just think about how you add your team members. Make sure it fits the project. Make sure are they playing, let's say, a critical component in conducting the evaluation, or whatever their research that they're adding to it. And just remember, it is difficult to invite team members without creating, who knows, maybe bad feelings or just, so I would really be careful and considerate in how you invite and bring people on. And then sometimes, I don't know if you'll be doing this at the graduate level, but we sometimes work with consultants, and they have a lot of knowledge, and you can bring them in for their expertise. And they do what we basically do here, proposal development reviews and whatnot. And then I'd like to close this with two final slides. One, working or contacting the program officers of let's say, graduate research fellowship program. I would encourage you to contact program officers, meet with your mentor, work out a plan of what you want to say or who you need to talk to, because the program officers have so much information that they can share with you and just give you better ideas on if it's going to be possibly a successful grant, or maybe you're in a different directorate or a different division. And, send them a draft ahead of time. I like to prepare these one-pager. They almost look like marketing pieces where you outline, the objective, what part of their strategic plan, I've done it that way, are you addressing? And then during the call, be brief and to the point, and let the program officer talk. And then, don't forget to say thank you afterwards. And so unfortunately, a lot of times actually, grants are unsuccessful, and that does not mean that the grant is over. What I would always recommend is to look at the reviewer's comments. If that grant proposal that you just submitted can be salvaged, or maybe they identified a weakness, and let's say you needed a partner, you can go out and get the partner and strengthen the proposal to resubmit it. And then, maybe that's not in the end the best avenue for you or pathway for you to go for. And so those are just some of the things that I kind of go through when I'm looking at grants that I've identified. And then when you get into the proposal development stage, that's where all of those documents and narratives are combined together, and then it's packaged like Jennifer had on that other screen by the in coordination with the RSC and submitted. And then grants nowadays are taking it's gotten longer. So I would probably say at least 3 months, maybe 6 months is probably what I would say is generally how long it takes to get a reply back. So keep that in mind in your planning for grants, that sometimes you're not going to hear back on these grants for 6 months from now. So take that into consideration. And with that, I'll close the presentation and then take any questions y'all may have.